Good afternoon, everyone, again. Thank you so much for joining today's event, which is the second regional parliamentary track at the Asia Pacific IGF. We have now already everyone here in the meeting. We will provide some welcoming remarks from Chengetai Masango, who is the head of the IGF Secretariat, followed by Amrita Choudhury, who is the chair of the Asia Pacific IGF. I will now share the pre-recorded video and welcoming message from Chengetai Masango.
Honourable Members of Parliament, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to address you today at the second edition of the parliamentary track at the Asia Pacific Regional IGF, held in a dynamic and diverse region that continues to be a driver of global digital transformation. Let me begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to the host country, the Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal, the APR IGF Multi-Stakeholder Steering Committee, and the Secretariat.Asia, with whom we have been closely collaborating in the past months to bring you, Members of Parliament, together with other key stakeholders to discuss the latest developments in the digital policy space. I take this opportunity to warmly welcome you to the IGF ecosystem. Your legislative role is vital in translating the multi-stakeholder discussions of the IGF into national and regional policies that foster an enabling digital environment. We hope that you will find the APR IGF discussions useful, building new connections, interact with other participants, and further engage in IGF processes. In line with the overarching theme of the APR IGF on the future of multi-stakeholder digital governance, the parliamentary track will introduce you to key players in the internet governance ecosystem that allows for an open, secure, and interoperable functioning of the internet and digital technologies. Following this introductory session, and recognizing the significance of digital platforms in our day-to-day lives, parliamentarians and other experts will be invited to share concrete examples of governance practices around the regulation and accountability of digital platforms. This is not just a technical conversation, but it is also about how you, as lawmakers, can shape inclusive, human rights-centric, and adaptive policies that ensure a trustworthy digital environment. We encourage you to exchange ideas, challenge assumptions, and learn from multi-stakeholder practices that can support your national priorities and advance regional cooperation to keep pace with the rapid technological change we are witnessing. We are eager to hear from you about the needs and challenges of parliamentarians and how you could best benefit from our Internet Governance Forum and its parliamentary track. Hopefully, at the end of the sessions, we will come closer to identifying good practices of digital platform regulation that contribute to a more secure and trustworthy digital environment within the region. Distinguished parliamentarians, let us embrace the power of multi-stakeholder engagement by closely working with the governments at all levels and the private sector, civil society, academia, and the technical community, not only locally, but globally. With this in mind, I would also like to invite you to explore the outcomes of the global IGF and its parliamentary track that took place earlier this year in Lillestrøm, Norway, under the theme Building Digital Governance Together. Over 100 parliamentarians and staff came together to collectively commit in a declaration to advancing effective, inclusive, and democratic digital governance in the face of complex and evolving challenges. And finally, your deliberations are taking place at a critical moment for global digital governance. This December, the United Nations General Assembly will review 20 years of progress since the World Summit on the Information Society WSIS, including the mandate of the IGF. Your discussions and outcomes here will undoubtedly serve as an important input to the WSIS Plus 20 preparatory process, and we encourage you to take an active part in the preparations being facilitated by Albania and Kenya in the lead up to the December review. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you productive, insightful, and inspiring discussions ahead.
So Chengetai Masango would have really liked being part of the session today. Due to the time zone difference, he decided to record a video message. So without any further ado, I would like to give the floor to Amrita Choudhury, who is not only the chair of the Asia Pacific Regional IGF, but also one of our Internet Governance Forum multi-stakeholder advisory group members. Amrita, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Celine. Namaste. That's a greeting which we use in Nepal and in India to all the esteemed parliamentarians who have joined today in the morning. And on behalf of the multi-stakeholder steering group of the Asia Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum, I'm honored to welcome all of you to this regional parliamentary track, which is actually being held just before the 16th APR IGF, which starts from tomorrow. Much as we would have loved to meet you in person, however, due to these situations, we are meeting online. At least the internet gives us that provision to meet. As Chengetai mentioned, the overarching theme this year, which the multi-stakeholder APAC community decided, was the future of multi-stakeholder digital governance in Asia Pacific, which we think is pretty apt because internet is today an integral part of all our lives, wherever we are located in Asia Pacific region. Whether we are connected online or not connected, it does have an impact. And as US parliamentarians who are the representatives of people from your part of the region or country, have to debate on a lot of issues, also about upcoming regulations that each country is debating today. And in most cases, the digital issues are intrinsically woven into the discussions. And therefore, it is important, technology is leapfrogging issues. Technology has its benefits, but also has its challenges. And to facilitate that dialogue and exchange on these key digital public policy issues, as Chengetai mentioned, the IGF parliamentarian track was set up. And since APAC is so diverse in all its aspects, and more than half of the world resides here, we believe it is important that these dialogues are regionalized so that the exchanges can take place within the region. We have very developed countries, we have least developed countries, we have diverse languages, we have diverse challenges too. We take this opportunity to have at least a few of you discussing these issues. And the topic which has been curated by the Secretariat seems to be quite apt, starting from platform governance to basic, how the internet works, because many times regulations are being drafted, but there are certain aspects of how the internet, the openness of the internet, the interconnectivity has to be taken into consideration. Additionally, since, as Chengetai mentioned, this year is special because it is the year where the 20th review of the World Summit of Information Society is happening, which includes the relooking at IGF's mandate, which is the only multi-stakeholder platform where all communities can come together and discuss issues and set agendas. And we hope and we would request you to engage and encourage your fellow parliamentarians also to engage in these discussions. Also look at the documents which the IGF has produced, or even the APR IGF has produced over the years. The ones which are produced by APR IGF are called synthesis document, where many key messages which the community in a bottom-up process are articulating could be of interest for all of you. We would also engage you to keep an eye on the discussions which are ongoing on the WSIS Plus 20 review, because many issues such as digital divide, inclusion, AI, data protection, the multi-stakeholder model, capacity building, digital public infrastructure are all issues which you may be looking at. And so that also the interests of your communities or region can be reflected in these documents. We hope you can deliberate openly in today's discussions, and there would be a report prepared at the end of it from APR IGF called synthesis document, where we would also be incorporating the outcomes of what is being deliberated. We hope you can contribute to it, as well as share that with your fellow parliamentarians and the communities you come from. I think that's about it from my end. Celine, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Amrita, for these very nice welcoming words. Without any further ado, I would suggest that we go into the first parliamentary session, which is about navigating the net, an introduction to the internet ecosystem. As Amrita said, we would like, and this is one of the aim of our parliamentary track, not only at the global level, but also at the regional level, to bring members of parliaments together, not only amongst themselves, across regions, across countries, but also together with other stakeholders. And what we're very often doing also with members of parliaments is that we would like to bring them together with the technical community. So this is where we will be starting today's first session. And this is where I would like to invite Jennifer Chung, the Vice President for Policy at .Asia organization, and also part of the APR IGF Secretariat, and also Suni Chendi, Strategic Relations Senior Advisor at APNIC, to join me in the first panel. I will be moderating, but also sharing a very short presentation at the very beginning of the session. Perhaps some housekeeping rules before we start. The session will be recorded, and we will publish it on our IGF YouTube, but also our Parliamentary Track webpage for any one of you who would like to refer to that session or to watch it again. Should you have some colleagues, for instance, who are interested but cannot join in time. And then this is going to be a very lively discussion, so we really encourage you to take the floor either by raising your virtual hand or also sharing any questions here in the chat. So before I share a very short presentation, I would like Jennifer Chung and also Suni Chendi to shortly introduce themselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Celine. Just checking my audio can be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We can hear.
Thanks. Just a short introduction. I guess first, thank you for the invitation to be able to speak to all of our parliamentarians here. Very happy to be able to do that at the second edition of the regional track of the IGF parliamentary track as well, adjacent to APR IGF. My name is Jennifer Chung. I am the Vice President of Policy for .Asia organization. We are a registry operator, but of course, in our other role, we also play the support secretariat for the regional IGF here. So just a short intro from me.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Suni?
Thank you, Celine, and thank you for I really appreciate for inviting APNIC and particularly me, and thanks to Jennifer for putting my name down for this session. This is my first parliamentarian session, I have ever attended, and very glad to know that, it's happening in the Asia Pacific alongside the APR IGF. So a good day to all the parliamentarians attending this session online, and also for joining, taking your time today as well. My name is Sunny, actual name is Srinivas Chendi, but everyone calls me Sunny, and I work for APNIC for more than 20 years now, and I was in various roles. My background is technical and non-technical as well, so I can communicate very well with both the audiences. So I'm looking forward to a very diverse and fruitful session here today. And I'll be talking more about APNIC and what APNIC does and the other aspects of this session. Thank you, Celine.
Thank you very much, Suni, also to you. Let me share a few slides to also introduce not only the IGF, but also our parliamentary activities that we're actually already doing since 2019, to also here set the scene. So again, welcome everyone, and also to the federal members of parliaments here, part of the regional parliamentary track. For today's first session, Navigating the Net, an introduction to the internet ecosystem. So we have two technical community representatives here, part of the panel. And from my side, I will rather provide you a short introduction of the IGF ecosystem. So for your information, the Internet Governance Forum, I think that most of you already know it, but it is actually more than just a global forum. It is an ongoing process. Our mandate is in the Tunis agenda from 2005. And since 2006, we are organizing a yearly forum taking place at the global level. And since 2006, we've celebrated this year our 20th anniversary. And as also Amrita shared with you during her opening remarks, our mandate is going to be reviewed by the end of the year at a UN General High-Level meeting in December. So besides the global forum that in the meantime actually gathers over 9,000 participants, both online and on site, we also have what we call intersessional work. And this is where community members and experts actually come together, always on a bottom-up approach, and discuss some policies, policy recommendations, or for instance, also best practices. And this is where every year we have a set of policy networks. This year, for instance, we do have the policy network on artificial intelligence, meaningful access, internet fragmentation, or for instance, a best practice forum on cybersecurity. Besides that, we also have some self-governed groups of networks, which we call dynamic coalitions on various themes of interest. So for instance, we do have a dynamic coalition on the interplanetary internet, or we have a dynamic coalition on accessibility and disability, working on very specific issues that are important to the community. Besides that, and this is also where we are right now, we do have over 177 national, regional, and youth IGF initiatives. So basically the same, following the same format than the global IGF, but at more local levels. And this is where we are today ahead of the Asia-Pacific regional IGF taking place. And last but not least, we have also capacity development activities. And this is where we have the parliamentary track that is the parliamentary track that is one of our capacity development activities. Since 2019, we are developing some very specific sessions, programs for legislators to bring them actually closer to the discussions that are taking place at the IGF. Good. Yes, perfect. And here's some more information about our work with parliamentarians. As I mentioned, this is an IGF program that is really dedicated to members of parliaments, but also, of course, to staff of parliaments, to foster dialogue not only amongst fellow parliamentarians, but also with other stakeholders on key digital policy issues. And of course, we're also collaborating on that with many different partners, let it be, for instance, with technical community partners, but also with UN organizations, with governments, civil society, and also private sector, who are interested in the work of parliamentarians on key digital policy issues. For instance, at the annual parliamentary track, we are officially co-organizing with the Interparliamentary Union now since 2019, and also every year with the parliament of the host country. So for instance, this year, the IGF 2025 took place in Norway, and one of our official collaborators on the parliamentary track was Storting, so the Parliament of Norway. And here, for your information, we've listed also some previous parliamentary track activities that took place in 2025, starting with the Arab IGF. We've had, in the meantime, also the West African one, and also some upcoming ones will be the Latin American and Caribbean IGF from 3rd to 4th of November. Also officially collaborating with the National Parliament of Argentina, but also with more local legislative bodies in the country. And last but not least, we will also have the Nigerian IGF coming up on the 26th of November. All these sessions, of course, are publicly available, and in case of interest, please do not hesitate to pass on this information. So getting involved in IGF processes here, just to let you know what kind of benefits for members of parliaments can arise. So for instance, meet technical experts and gather multi-stakeholder perspectives. So this is where a lot of parliamentarians see a strong benefit in participating in IGF processes, meaning participating at, for instance, the global IGF, at the regional ones, or in intersessional work, because they really get some different views on certain topics that, for instance, they would not receive if it was amongst their own parliament. Then the second point is, of course, an exchange with other fellow parliamentarians, and by, for instance, creating networks. They see a lot of benefits in sharing best practices, for instance, from one parliament or parliamentarian to another. And some networks have really been created officially, such as, for instance, the African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance, that actually in the continent gathers together parliamentarians who are either working in digital affairs or some related committees. Parliamentarians are there not only to learn from, for instance, other technical experts, but also to share their own perspectives. And this is basically where we're creating that space so that other participants can actually join and listen to what parliamentarians have to say. And then last but not least, this is also something that Amrita and Chengetai Masango shared in their opening remarks. We are consolidating key outcomes in messages, in reports, and whatsoever, so that members of parliaments can bring back these resources to their parliament and refer to it, for instance, in the work that they are doing. And one really concrete example that we wanted to share with you to show a little bit the kind of work that we're also doing with parliamentarians. So here, the European Parliament, we are collaborating with them actually since the creation of the IGF. They've sent, so they were actually part of the very early stages of the World Summit on the Information Society. And as of 2006, so the first IGF that took place at the global level, they've sent a delegation of members of parliaments. And since then, they've not only actively participated in the parliamentary track, but also in other sessions, mingled with stakeholders. And one of their latest work was, for instance, the resolution that was adopted on the 10th of September on the governance of the internet, the renewal of the mandate of the Internet Governance Forum. So they even passed a resolution advocating for not only the renewal, but also the permanent mandate of the IGF. Good. And we were mentioning also some outcome documents. So this is where, for instance, as resource documents, we wanted to bring to your attention the IGF Lillustrum messages. basically that consolidates output from all the sessions that were organized by stakeholders at the IGF this year, and also the output document of the parliamentary track. That was a 2 days event at the IGF in Lillestrøm. And this is a document that's been curated by members of parliaments, for members of parliaments, together with stakeholders who were invited in the program of the IGF. So this is also a very successful bottom-up approach of coming together for as an output document. Good. So without any further ado, I would like to pass on actually the floor to the two speakers. Jennifer and Suni, you shared, you would like to share a few slides also about your organization. So Jennifer, let me start with you to make a short introduction about the work of .asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. I'm just trying to get to the share button, and give me one moment. There is always a little bit of a delay when I locate the correct screen to share. I'm not able to find it. One more second, sorry. Found it. There it is. Okay. Well, I'm very happy to be able to just give a brief introduction about what .asia is. First of all, what we actually mean, what we are as an organization, and what the domain .asia is. So everybody is quite familiar with .com, .net, .org. .asia really is very similar. If you see that right down here in the screen here, it is the top level domain, .asia. For us, just to really give a very quick overview about where we, sit in the internet ecosystem. You might know this. If you do know this, please bear with me. I'm going to go through this very quickly. So for users, this is what they see on the URL bar. This is the, this is the top level domain .asia. This is the second level domain. This is actually what the DNS goes back, and this is the IP address. There it is. That's the names. These are the numbers, which Sunny might talk about a little bit more because APNIC has everything to do with numbers. And then finally here is also the numbers, but the protocol. And all of this is managed by the ICANN Corporation. So it's the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. I'm going to fly through this a little bit more, showing you what .asia is in the global DNS tree. The root here, you can see that on your left, these are the CCTLDs, the country code top level domains. Over here, we call these generic top level domains, so .com, .info, and .asia. A quick look at what the syntax of a domain name is. I mentioned earlier, this is the top level, which is all the way to the right of the dot. In between here, this is the second level domain. And then you can have a lot more third level, fourth level, fifth level. I think nowadays we don't see so much of that going on, but you can see here's an example. And then a little bit more of the syntax. This is a URL with all of this. Then you can see, and the backslash, then, the subpages that you might see in a certain domain. Of course, there's also a second level domain registry. You can see it's .co.kr. Korea does have this. And then finally, just a brief mention that there's also internationalized domain names. This means that it is domain names that are not in alphanumeric characters, A to Z, 0 to 9, but in different scripts. So here is an example of the Chinese script, the Han script. And here it is. A little bit more about the DNS industry. So when we talk about the DNS industry, we really talk about the registries and registrars. There's the registrants. And of course, there's a lot more that goes on out there. We have the resellers, we have the secondary market providers, and then the next level, we have the root server operators and all of that, resolvers. You can see all the way over there, your ISPs, hosting providers, and all of that. You see RIRs are over here. Again, Sunny will tell you a little bit more about that. And then so here in this gray shaded area, that's a domain registration industry. Then we have the DNS community, which kind of is a little larger. And then finally, you see the internet infrastructure over here that includes all of the ISPs and telcos and other things. ICANN sits over here. That's the ICANN community. There is a little bit of an overlap here with the rest of this. This is industry. This is the ICANN community. And of course, you can see over here, there are a lot of the standards bodies for the policy coordination. And then over here, you see, of course, yourselves. There's the IGOs, the governments, different NGOs. There's business stakeholders and other stakeholders that also form part of the entirety of the internet community. If we kind of dive a little bit deeper, when you look at registry, registrar, registrant, you can kind of think of it as producer, distributor, and consumer. Of course, there's a lot more nuance in these three buckets, and you can see here, I'm not going to go into too much detail. There's backend providers, front-end consultants. For the registrars, there's also resellers and agents. Of course, there's a root DNS. But here, over here, you can see on the side, there's ICANN and IANA, and they actually manage the policy coordination for these parts. So the root DNS, the registry, and the accredited registrars, not everything. They do not manage any of the resellers. This part is the domain registration industry. The larger bracket over here is the DNS community and also, of course, the internet infrastructure. CCTLDs sit on this nice little level. Some of them have specific contracts or MOUs with ICANN. There are others who don't really go to ICANN, and really it's very much a jurisdiction by jurisdiction decision on that. I'm happy to share this presentation also for those who are interested. I'm not going to read through all of the small text. I think it might be useful to understand kind of the overview first, but this kind of gives you a bird's eye view of what the domain name industry or the domain registration industry is all about. For .Asia, we are one of many registry operators. What that means is we not only have a contract with ICANN to manage a generic top-level domain. .Asia is, of course, a namespace specifically for APAC. We are also a nonprofit, so all of our proceeds actually coming in from domain name sales go towards projects like Creative Commons.Asia, Net Mission Ambassadors. I think those of you who have been to IGF might have noticed there are a lot of youth delegates. There's a large part of those who come from APAC who have been through this program. It is a capacity building program for them. And also, of course, supporting APR-IGF, which is the regional internet governance forum for Asia Pacific. It's one of, part of our mission and vision here at .Asia. And I think I'm going to stop here and pass it right back to you. Thank you, Celine.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, also for putting together such a nice overview of quite a complex environment. So now I would like to give the floor to Suni also to share more about APNIC's work, but also where APNIC is placed in this ecosystem of the internet. Suni.
Thank you, Celine, and hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear well.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Jennifer, for setting the stage for the IP numbers. I thought of sharing the slides, and I have a new setup at home here. I just managed to dismantle everything last night and put it together. So I'll see if my slides actually work. I tried this morning, it worked, but you never know. If not, I'll just read through my notes, and I'll pass my slides to Celine later on to publish on the website. So just a couple of seconds. Let me open my slides. No, it's not going to work. Sorry, everyone. Sorry, Celine. I'll pass the slides. I'll email the slides to you after it, so I won't waste any of the time. I knew this happens. Every time you test something, before the session, everything works fine. This is the beauty of the technical things.
This was risky, Sunny.
Yes. So let's not waste everyone's time here. So I'll briefly introduce the APNIC. I think most of you already know, and Jennifer rightly said, the APNIC manages the internet numbers. So the Asia Pacific Network Information Center serves as the regional internet registry for the Asia Pacific region, playing a pivotal role in the governance and technical coordination of the internet. And as one of the 5 RARs globally, APNIC is tasked with the critical responsibility of managing and distributing internet number resources, including addresses, both IPv4 and IPv6, and also AS numbers, autonomous system numbers. These resources are essential for the operation and growth of the internet, enabling devices and networks to communicate effectively, like we are communicating now over the Zoom with one and each other. APNIC operates under a multi-stakeholder model of internet governance, which means it actively involves a diverse range of stakeholders that includes network operators, industry representatives, governments, entities, and civil society, and anyone, whoever is interested or use internet could come and participate in its decision-making processes. Now, this inclusive approach ensures that policies and practices reflect the needs and perspectives of the entire internet community in the region. Now, I'm speaking for APNIC, but other RARs also have similar setup in their own regions. May differ slightly from one region to the other, but most like 99%, it's the same. It's the bottom-up approach, and community, serving the community. So by fostering collaboration and consensus among stakeholders, APNIC helps maintain a stable, secure, and open internet infrastructure in the region. Its jurisdiction spans 56 economies. We serve 56 economies across the Asia-Pacific region, making it a cornerstone institution in the region's digital ecosystem. And as Amrita rightly said in our opening speech, we serve more than half of the billion population in this region. Through its governance model, APNIC not only manages technical resources, but also contributes to the broader dialogue on internet policy and development. We take part in the global IGF forums, the regional ones like APR IGF, and also the national and local IGF forums as well, ensuring that the internet remains global, interoperable, and inclusive platform. A core function of APNIC is the allocation and management of internet number resources, as I said, which includes both V4 and V6 and autonomous system numbers. These resources are distributed to APNIC members. The members who require, those networks who require these resources will join APNIC as a member, and they receive these resources from APNIC, which encompass a wide range of organizations such as internet service providers, educational institutions, governments. And these days, we also see a lot of data centers and cloud providers, and the CCTLDs that Jennifer was referring to, also joining APNIC to receive the resources to manage the networks. Now, this allocation is vital for ensuring the potential operational integrity and scalability of the internet across the Asia-Pacific region and globally as well. APNIC also oversees a robust policy development process, which is community-driven, open, and based on consensus by the members of the community. Now, this process allows stakeholders from various sectors to propose, discuss, and agree upon policies that govern how APNIC or any RAR should manage and distribute these internet resources to those who require them. The PDP ensures transparency and inclusivity, enabling the community to shape the rules and guidelines that affect their operations. So APNIC being a RAR, we do not run any operations. Of course, we have our own infrastructure that we run for our office networks, but the operations that run by the network providers providing network services to their customers, they are the ones to shape and then to discuss these policies and make sure that, they work for them. But APNIC, as the facilitating of this policy, empowers its members and promotes a fair and equitable distribution of resources. This approach not only enhances trust and cooperation among stakeholders, but also aligns with the global best practices in internet governance. The effective management of INRs and the inclusive policy framework are foundational to maintaining a stable and efficient infrastructure in the region. Now, APNIC also plays a crucial role in providing trainings and building infrastructure in the region, like Anycast root server, DNS root servers, IXPs, and also we closely engage with governments in setting up of computer emergency response teams in an economy, so they can mitigate and mitigate the internet abuse and spam and any other issues that they may have. Now, APNIC plays a significant role in representing the Asia-Pacific community on the global stage as well. We actively participates in international forums such as the Internet Governance Forum, the Internet Cooperation for Assigned Names and Numbers, the ICANN, the Internet Engineering Task Force, the IETF, and other technical and governmental bodies as well. Now, through these engagements, APNIC advocates for the interests and technical needs of its regional stakeholders, which again includes everyone, the governments, the industry, the whoever providing the network operations, ensuring that their voices are heard in global policy discussions. Additionally, APNIC promotes the adoption of best practices, standards, and emerging technologies that contribute to more open, stable, and secure internet. And you can have a look at our APNIC blog. If you visit the APNIC blog, you can see a number of articles and standards and best practices published not only by APNIC authors, but the community authors as well. And these are mostly coming from the community itself. And when they deploy the networks, they learn how they deploy the networks, and they come up with the best practices and the standards that they share with all the other community members through APNIC blog. This strengthens the region's influence in regional and global internet governance, ensuring that the Asia-Pacific stays at the forefront of technological innovation and policy development for the global South. APNIC's global advocacy efforts are integral to its mission of supporting an open, stable, secure, and inclusive internet for all. Over to you, Celine.
Thank you very much, Suni, also for the presentation of APNIC's work. You can gladly share the slides with us, and we will make sure to publish them also on our website. APNIC truly is also a multi-stakeholder, let's say, following a very multi-stakeholder governing approach. And perhaps you could let us know, Suni, and I'm going to ask a question also directly to you, in your field of work, but also as an organization working with so many different stakeholder groups, what do you think are the unintended consequences that, for instance, laws and regulation can have on the proper functioning of the internet? And perhaps as a follow-up question, how do you think that members of parliaments can, or what kind of recommendations would you have in the policy and lawmaking process? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Celine. So APNIC, as I mentioned, APNIC operates within a global community-driven framework to manage IP addresses. So the unintended consequences of national laws and regulations on these IP addresses is potential for fragmentation of global, open, and interoperable internet that we all believe and trust and support that model. APNIC's entire function as a regional internet registry relies on globally consistent, community-driven, and technical approach to managing unique IP addresses. When national regulations conflict with this model, the consequences can be undermine the technical foundation of the basic internet that we all believe in. So I'll give some examples. National laws, particularly those related to data localization and privacy, like parts of GDPR or similar national rules, can conflict with the requirement of accurate and publicly accessible registration data, which is the WHOIS database that APNIC runs, authoritative WHOIS database of all the IP addresses, including AS numbers, that's been delegated in the Asia-Pacific region in the database. So everyone required any assistance in contacting those operators can actually access those details in the database. While APNIC is not a law enforcement agency, but its public data is crucial for cybercrime investigations. And this is a big concern for most of the parliamentarians and the law enforcement agencies and the governments. So privacy laws that restrict the sharing of non-public information, even with the law enforcement agencies, can unintentionally make it harder for authorities to prosecute cybercriminals. Unless a formal, often slow legal process like mutual legal assistance treaties between the nations is actually followed and requested that information. The other one is splinter nets, or balkanization of the internet. Regulations that seek to exert national control over IP address use or data storage can lead to an internet that is no longer a single borderless network. National policies that prioritize digital sovereignty, and these days, this is a big thing, with every government, every nation, or that attempt to control all IP addresses used within their borders could pressure local entities to retain or hold IP address blocks. even if they aren't fully utilized. This goes against APNIC's core principles of conservation and fair distribution of these global IP address distributions based on the demonstrated technical requirements or needs. APNIC facilitates a controlled IPv4 market as well, to ensure scarce addresses are used efficiently, because the IPv4 run out and we have to have some other mechanisms, to stop leasing of IP addresses. So the community came together and discussed, for lengthy times to agree on a transfer policies, that can members can to use that policy, and members can transfer the resources to each other between the economies and between the cross borders. But national laws imposing, taxes, fees, or restrictive vetting on these transfers could create barriers, preventing addresses from flowing freely to where they are most needed, thereby stifling growth and innovation in neighboring countries. The other one is technical innovation, and I'm going to talk about IPv6 adoption here. Unintended legal consequences can indirectly discourage the long-term solution to IP scarcity, which is IPv6 adoption. If national regulations create high value or a proactive framework around residual IPv4 space, the remaining of the IPv4 space that we have, which is very limited, it can incentivize businesses, provide some incentives, and governments to use the old standard rather than invest in the mitigation to the migration to the technically superior and vastly larger IPv6 address space. I think we all know the benefits of it. And this delays the inevitable global transition, which is necessary for the long-term sustainable growth of the internet and for the digitalization and smart cities that everyone is talking about, because its vast address space allows every device have a unique IP address, which is actually crucial for the Internet of Things that we're deploying, on a daily basis. There's more than 40 billion devices worldwide, and it's keep growing on. And enable seamless connectivity between them for millions of sensors and devices in a city. These days, everything is going e-platforms, it's continuously growing on. And this requires seamless connectivity with public IP addresses not sitting behind the nets. Now, this also offers technical improvements like enhanced security and more efficient data routing, which are the foundation for applications like smart grids, that we are thinking of, all the nations are thinking of implementing smart grids. Connected vehicles, we have a lot of e-vehicles on the road these days, and efficient utility management. It could be power, gas, or any other sectors. So APNIC's effectiveness depends on global cooperation and consistency. The national laws must be carefully crafted to avoid undermining the internet's technical foundations. Collaboration across borders is essential to ensure the internet remains open, secure, interoperable, and resilient for all. Now, going to the second question, Celine, that you asked, what issues should be considered when drafting digital-related laws? Now, the APNIC's core recommendation to legislators is to adopt a think global, act local approach, which prioritizes the preservation of the global, open, and interoperable nature of the internet. Now, as a regional internet registry, APNIC advocates for policies that are technically sound and community-driven, urging governments to avoid unilateral actions that could fragment the network. APNIC encourages and requests the legislators, the parliamentarians, to adhere to the following principles when drafting digital-related laws. One is maintain a single global interoperable addressing system. Acknowledge and respect the role of APNIC and other areas and other bodies in this ecosystem as technical, non-governmental custodians of internet number resources that includes, IPv4, IPv6, and ASNs. Ensure national policies, especially concerning IP address allocation, usage, and transfer, are fully compatible with established global and regional policies. Balance legitimate privacy concerns with the operational necessity of the public whose database. Restricting access to accurate contact information for IP resources holders compromises the accountability and security necessary for network operators to address cyber attacks, spam, and technical troubleshooting. Prioritize consultation with the technical community when drafting laws that affect the underlying infrastructure that they actually build and they provide their network services on. This ensures that legal mandates are technically feasible and do not create unintended operational risk for anyone, those who operate the networks. Engage in established multi-stakeholder forums such as Internet Governance Forum or even APNIC open policy meetings, APRIGF, and other national and local forums to seek consensus and collaborate on international best practices rather than imposing unilateral national solutions. And to add on to that, ensure regulations do not inadvertently disadvantage or discourage the adoption of open globally recognized standards like IPv6, DNSSEC, and RPKI, which is routing security, which are essential for the internet's resilience, security, and continued global scalability. Now, strengthen the technical expertise of government and regulatory bodies. Regulators should employ staff with comprehensive knowledge of networking, cybersecurity, and emerging technologies to efficiently implement and enforce technology-neutral laws, and also empower them, give them opportunities to participate in the national, regional, and global forums like Internet Governance Forum, APNIC Open Policy Development Forums, and etc. So they can actually interact and learn and share among the other technical savvy operators, to understand the underlying principles of how the internet works. And then that will give a foundation to a better legalization of local laws and national laws. Thank you, Celine.
Thank you very much, Suni, also for these very concrete examples that I think can be and are very useful also to members of parliaments, because as you mentioned, very often these are unintended consequences on the proper functioning of the internet. And now perhaps, Jennifer, to you, if you'd like to add anything and build on what Suni said, but perhaps also another question that I would like to direct to you that also Suni also kind of responded to. So how do you think members of parliaments can actually best benefit from your work and also from the work of the technical community? And how could legislators actually leverage the IGF in the policy and lawmaking process? And perhaps not only the IGF, but also other platforms that, for instance, Suni mentioned as well. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Celine. I have to thank Sunny for building a castle, because I feel like I don't have too much to add on a lot of the very comprehensive items that Sunny definitely put on. So maybe I'll zhuzh up some flowers and add a little curtain on the window. I guess just to build on a little bit of what Sunny said, because he really emphasized, especially from the numbers point of view, for domain name industry, it's also very important for us to understand the unintended consequences. I mean, Sunny mentioned GDPR, which is, of course, the European region data protection regulation, but there's also NIS2, the NIS2 directive, that also impacts very much the domain name industry, especially since it's a directive, and that means each of the member states get to build that within their national framework. What that means is, I guess, the kind of the tension between internet as a global resource where, it's cross-border, without borders, all of that. But when all the national jurisdictions then, build on top of that, there is that tension between where is the implementation going to go? Are we going to end up with 27, 50, whatever different procedures for validating registrant data, for example, at least on the part of registry operators? If we go a little bit into some examples, I guess, in the APAC region, and now I'm going to give some examples with, I guess, the CCs. I think the country code top-level domains, they have certain interesting regulations. I think Cambodia does have not a mandatory for all of the business related tax communications, but they definitely have mandated the use of the .kh domains for specific business sectors. Also for Singapore, they do not allow the reselling of .sg domain names. I think they do allow transfer of ownership, but it's not allowed for profits. There needs to be some transfer that is approved by SGNIC. But of course, in practice, a lot of people try to get around it by doing other things that allow them to do this. So there's a lot of tension between, I guess, what the good intentions of legislators or regulators that look at, for example, more robust cybersecurity, a better protection for personal data, but it does definitely impact industry. And I think how we can look at it, how can members of parliaments, legislators, regulators benefit from the work that we do is quite simple. This is the first thing. The first step is being part of the regional parliamentarian track, and then of course being part of the global IGF track. I think that would allow you to share best practices and look at pain points that are similar, that are coming up through different legislatures in your own home countries and home regions. Being also part of the main program is really important too, because there could be a lot of multi-stakeholder organized sessions that talk about topics that could impact upcoming legislation, or vice versa. The topic might be impacts of the upcoming legislations. And I think that is also very important to have that nuance to be able to understand from all the different points of view, from different stakeholder groups, from different sectoral groups, from industry, that could have that nuance that you may not have thought about. And then finally, for at least for Asia Pacific regional IGF, we're a very open community. We allow anybody in the APAC community to actually join, to shape the program, be part of a multi-stakeholder steering group. And so I guess what we're trying to say is that there's so many different ways and resources that I think parliamentarians can actually take advantage of. And I think we also have to do our best to be able to make them known that these are resources they can take part in, that they could leverage and they can use. And then finally, for outputs, I think both the Global IGF has outputs from the parliamentarian track, and APRGF also has an output. Every year we put out a synthesis document which informs all the topics that we talk about at the annual meeting. I think this can form a very useful information packet. I think if parliamentarians also, give us some information how we can best help you, how we can tailor some of the good outcomes and topics that actually help you understand more about legislation you're contemplating that's going through the houses, I think that also could be very key and very useful for everybody. Thanks, Celine.
Thank you, Jennifer, also for you to give very concrete examples, also country examples here. Now we still have 15 minutes time to open the floor and really hear also from the participants, let it be members of parliament, staff of parliaments, or also other fellow participants who were listening in. So perhaps to guide also a little bit the discussions and the open floor Q&A, perhaps a question also to the participants. So what issues do you think members of parliament should consider when drafting digital-related laws, especially taking into account the rapid technological and emerging technologies for that? So I'm not sure if someone would like to share some concrete examples, or if they have some questions that they would like also to ask Jennifer and Suni. In that case, you would need to, yes, Jennifer.
Sorry, I was trying to find the hand button, but I realized as co-host, I don't have that. Maybe I wanted to touch on your good question that you asked participants. Maybe they're thinking a bit about it, but I mean, I do have some very general principles I'd like to share, especially when you're looking at the emerging technologies. It's fast moving, it's fast evolving. The way that legislation and regulation tracks through the houses, usually that takes a little bit longer. So I guess there's three main principles I would advise, if I may suggest.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have full participation from the industry and from technical community when you're contemplating laws and regulations on these topics, and have multiple rounds of participatory public multi-stakeholder consultations to be able to take in all of this. Of course, in the national context, I'm sure many countries already do that, but of course, doesn't matter, doesn't mind that I mention this again and highlight this. The second thing is to leverage the expertise in the respective sectors that can give these insights and nuances and avoid those unintended consequences that both Sunny and I mentioned earlier on in this talk. And especially when those regulations, those legislations could have extraterritorial impacts and reach, because of course GDPR and has extraterritorial reach. It could be just, in the EU, they're looking to protect their citizens, but it has global reach. So again, with the unintended consequences, or maybe they're intended, to have more nuance and expertise from industry, from sectors, and of course, especially the technical community when it comes to the internet. And then finally, for the rapid evolution, the regulations have to be flexible, because again, if the technology is moving so fast and you're just catching up with regulation and legislation, it could become outdated before you can even implement it. So really have to be flexible and more principles based than specific on or focused on specific technologies. A good example, I guess, looking at this wider process right now with this +20, I think a lot of us have been involved looking at it as well. I think there's a very key highlight that technical community has also put forward, is that it has to be technologically neutral, because this would be forward looking, this could be sustainable, instead of kind of dating it into something that next year, the year after, it's already outdated. And then finally, for global and jurisdictional complexities, I think I mentioned earlier extraterritorial reach. So digital technologies benefit mankind, doesn't have borders, really operate across borders. So really have to contemplate that tension between national state laws, regional laws, different groupings, and of course, to the whole world as well. Just a little bit of some thoughts on this. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. No, these are very good points, especially the technological neutral part, and also that laws should remain flexible in such a very fast paced environment. And this is something also within our own, IGF parliamentary track. What we realized, more and more members of parliaments are looking at these flexible laws, sandboxes, and so on. So perhaps, Suni, I'm not sure whether there's anything that you'd like to add also on top of what Jennifer said. Otherwise, would really encourage also some members of parliaments here, part of the call, or other participants to ask questions or make any comments.
I can say thanks, Celine. I can definitely add to what Jennifer said, and I completely agree with Jennifer there. With regards to consulting the technical community, the members of parliament and legislature can significantly benefit from the work of the technical community, not just APNIC, but any operators, network operators, or groups of engineers. If you go to IETF, there's lots of them there, all the engineers, with technical brains, by gaining access to, and the parliamentarians can gain access to the technical facts and operational expertise, that are crucial for drafting effective and future-proof laws, not just laws that govern, laws that are made for, 1 or 2 years, but can sustain longer, And technical experts can provide objective data on how the internet actually works, whether it's routing, internet shutdowns, or whatever, the parliamentarians are thinking of doing to have a sovereign right and protecting their citizens, and this prevents the enactment of laws that are technically impossible to enforce. And I have a lot of examples that I can cover from my own experience of talking to the network operators. So if the laws can be made looking at the data, that the technical community can provide, and then those laws can be implemented, without creating any unintended harm to network stability or security and interoperability of the network, The internet community is also very much likely work with the parliamentarians. They understand the risk that the internet is posing for the citizens and creating instability among the nations. So they're happy to work with them, but the governments and the parliamentarians have to engage with the technical community, have to consult with the technical community, or invite the technical community inputs into their processes. So they can actually have a meaningful discussion before any laws can be enacted. And the perfect example, good example, is this session itself here, as well as the Internet Governance Forum, which is a multi-stakeholder model internet governance forum where everyone comes and participates. And legislators and parliamentarians should take advantage of these forums, and attend and participate in this forum and engage directly with all the affected parties in one place. So they can get a holistic view of the policy impact, and also enacting any laws that are based on the national interests.
Thank you very
Over
much,
to you, Celine.
Sony. Yes, no, and I think that you really build upon Jennifer's comment as well, to really have the technical community being consulted. And for instance, this is also something that we've noticed as some good examples from the IGF parliamentary track, where in general, the regional and national IGF initiatives, there were instances where parliamentarians were consulting, for instance, the multi-stakeholder advisory group of some national and regional IGFs. One example is the one that we cite very often, because I think that it is a very interesting one, the use of drones in Kenya. And basically the local parliament, was going back to the multi-stakeholder advisory group of Kenya IGF to really consult the community there, not only the technical community, but basically all the various stakeholders. And something that I see also here in the chat from Zin, very similar to also what Jennifer raised during her intervention, the importance, I think, of having these flexible laws. It is quite a long process to formulate a law, to pass the bill, and then also to implement it. We've seen it, for instance, with the AI Act, that I think was just started being implemented now in summer, even though it's been adopted already quite some time ago. And the need to have the regulation not being left behind, but more forward looking. So thank you so much, Zin, for that comment.
Yes.
Other than that, in case there aren't any questions or comments, just a reminder as well that everything what's being discussed during the session will be fed as key messages into a summary report. So please do not hesitate to make any other concrete examples or propositions also. Otherwise, if there is nothing else, Jennifer and Suni, if there are any other closing remarks that you would like to provide, I would like to give you the final words. Thank you.
I'll let Jennifer go first. Females.
Happy to go first and then give you the last word, Sunny. I guess I think we've talked quite a lot about looking at it in the APAC kind of point of view, looking at it from the technical community point of view. I just really want to really highlight what Sunny and Celine has said. This is really the first step. You being part of this regional parliamentarian track is you're already tuned in. I think for us as well, I think we need to make sure we also give this resource to the rest of the parliamentarians in the region who can leverage this to be able to connect to different multi-stakeholder groupings in their own countries, regionally as well. And I think it's really important to have this information sharing open. Of course, .Asia, and I'm sure APNIC too, remains happy to provide this, even technical training as well. I think it's also very important to be part of the main program, because I think this year in Norway, I was lucky enough to be able to moderate one of the parliamentarian sessions, and a lot of that feedback was, we love being here, but we also need to be amongst the rest of the sessions to actually listen to all of the different aspects and the thoughts that come up on very, very emerging issues that really do impact legislation. So I think I'll stop there, and that is really the highlight I want to provide. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah, just
Jennifer.
add,
Over to you, Sunny.
yeah, just add on to Jennifer there, Asia, APNIC, and all the other entities. We will be very happy to engage with the parliamentarians, at the grassroots level when they're thinking of any laws, that to implement, we could provide the data, we could provide our expertise into them. The one thing that I would like to, as my final thoughts, I would like to request the parliamentarians to understand that the internet is built on a foundation of globally coordinated systems. It's networks of networks of networks, not just nation with have its own network and the other nation have its own network. And IP addressing, routing, DNS, and security protocols like RPK, like DNSSEC, these play a very important roles in managing these networks, globally coordinated networks. So the internet remains stable, secure, and scalable, especially with the adoption of IPv6, which I already talked about. Now, as a public good, the internet requires shared stewardship. APNIC plays a vital role in maintaining this infrastructure across the Asia-Pacific region, but we also require the coordination and collaboration from all the others as well around the globe. To support this, national legislation must align with technical realities. As I said, and I reiterate again, engaging with the technical communities at early stage of the policy or the lawmaking, will bring a lot of good benefits and good data, driven engagements and decision-making processes, which then can uphold the principles of openness and interoperability. By working together, parliamentarians, policymakers, civil society, technical community, and all the others, we can actually ensure the internet continues to be global, open, stable, and secure, and provide a resilient internet for innovation, communication, and a democratic way of engagement between the citizens and between the countries and nations globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sunny, for these closing remarks, and Jennifer also for yours. As mentioned just before, we will provide a short summary report, really consolidating everything what's been said here, because I do think that a lot of interesting and concrete examples were given by both Jennifer and Sunny. To let you know, we will have a 1-hour break, and then we'll continue with the next session, which will be on governing digital platforms in the Asia Pacific, basically strengthening public policy through multi-stakeholder insights. And this will be in an hour time. We will have Member of Parliament Padam Pariyar from Nepal join us, and then Tinanoya Simona, Chief Executive Officer from Tuvalu Telecommunications Corporation, and the moderator, but also contributing also as a speaker at the very beginning, will be Waqas Hassan, Regional Lead for Asia Global Digital Inclusion Partnership. Thank you so much for joining, and see you later.
Thank you for inviting me.